Welcome back, students. I am your instructor, Sandra Hindo, and we are officially on lecture 4 of the course, Lean Six Sigma Yellow Belt. If you're following along the official PDF or your official PowerPoint slide deck, please turn to slide number 101. Again, we are starting at slide number 101. Here it goes. Assessing process capability. Once a process is in statistical control, that is, producing consistently, you probably then want to determine if it is capable, that is, meeting specification limits and producing good parts. You determine capability by comparing the width of the process variation with the width of the specification limits. The process needs to be in control before you assess its capability. If it is not, then you will get incorrect estimates of process capability. You can assess process capability graphically by drawing capability histograms and capability plots. These graphics help you assess the distribution of your data and verify that the process is in control. Assessing process capability. What are the prerequisites? The process needs to be in control. Correct distribution must be chosen. For example, normal, binomial, and so on. To determine process capability, 1, you need to determine if specifications are currently being met. Calculate the sample mean and standard deviation to estimate the true value and standard deviation of the process. Create a frequency distribution for the data and determine if it is close to being normally distributed. If it is, continue. If not, get the help to transform the data or to find an alternative model. Assessing process capability continued. To determine process capability, plot the USL and LSL on the frequency distribution histogram. If part of the histogram is outside the specification limits, consider adjusting the mean to center the process. If the histogram indicates that the process spread is greater than the specification spread, the process might not be capable. Short and long-term capability studies. A short-term capability study covers a relatively short period of time, hours, days, and consists of 30 to 50 data points. A long-term capability study covers a relatively long period of time, weeks, months, and consists of 100 to 200 data points. Long-term process data for company 2, individual value, and then we have the observation value. So this one had about 200 or so data points. Application areas. Telecom. Suppose you want to increase the number of sales per agent for an outbound sales process, After conducting a process capability analysis, you notice that you achieve the minimum sales target per agent only 70% of the time. You fall short of the target 30% of the time, thus exposing yourself to the threat of having a customer move to your competitor. Process capability can and must be applied to all the processes that contribute to business and the organization's growth. Let's now look at sales and marketing. Suppose you're responsible for evaluating the responsiveness of your telephone sales department. That is, its capability of answering incoming calls. You record the number of unanswered calls, defects, by sales representatives each day for 20 days. You also record the number of incoming calls. After conducting process capability analysis, you discover that the percentage of defective calls is not influenced by the number of calls sampled and that the overall defective call rate is 22%. Process capability is very poor, hence lots of improvement is required. Let's look at a human resources example. Suppose the head of HR wants to evaluate the current capability of retaining a particular level of staff for more than 2 years, so their contribution to the company's growth and stability can be significant. If the evaluation finds that 30% of the staff resign voluntarily before they complete 2 years of service, it may be a signal to initiate several employee benefit programs or schemes. Process spread versus specification spread. Since the process limits extend from -3 standard deviation to +3 standard deviation, the total spread amounts to about 6 standard deviations total variation. If we compare process spread with specification spread, we typically have one of 3 situations. Case 1 is a highly capable process. The process spread is within the specification spread. When processes are capable, we have an attractive situation for several reasons. We could tighten our specification limits and claim our product is more uniform and consistent than our competitors. We can rightfully claim that the customer should experience less difficulty, less rework, more reliability. This should translate into higher profits. I love this one right here. This is the lower specification limit, and this is the upper specification limit, and all your data points are what? Between these two lines. They're not like all the way here, all the way here. They're not veering off the highway. This, my friend, case number 1, is a highly capable process. In terms of practicality, in terms of your work as a Lean Six Sigma practitioner, if you see data points here, that means you're doing your job as a practitioner. Less rework, less mistakes, less errors. It means you really did a good job in training your employees on that during that improvement plan. In this situation, Six Sigma is less than USL minus LSL. Customers experience less difficulty, less rework, and more reliability, which translate into higher profits. If you can consistently do this as a practitioner, you'll be golden, I tell you. Let's look at case 2, a barely capable process. The process spread almost matches the specification spread. When a process spread is just about equal to the specification spread, the process is capable of meeting specifications, but barely so. You see? You see the tails? Some of them are clearly touched. Imagine you're the one driving on the highway. Look what just happened. Boom. Look at these lines right here. You already touched it. You already veered off the highway. This suggests that if the process mean moves to the right or or to the left, just a little bit, a significant amount of output will exceed one of the specification limits. The process must be watched closely to detect shifts from the mean. Control charts are excellent tools to do this. So, yep, this is a barely capable process. The process spread almost matches the specification spread. In this situation, 6 sigma equals USL minus LSL. Process is barely capable of meeting specifications. Watch closely to detect shifts. Case 3, a not capable process. The process spread is beyond the specification spread. Oh boy, this truck driver, he didn't have enough caffeine in his system. He veered to the left, he veered to the right, not good situation. All of these, my friends, data points, dots, data points, dots. A not capable process. The process spread is beyond the specification spread. So as you can see in case 3, when the process spread is greater than the specification spread, a process is not capable of meeting specifications regardless of where the process mean or the center is located. This is indeed a sorry situation. Frequently, this happens and the people responsible are not even aware of it. Over-adjustment of the process is one consequence, resulting in even greater variability. Alternatives include changing the process to a more reliable technology or studying the process carefully in an attempt to reduce process variability. Another option, live with the current process and sort 100% of the output. You can also recenter the process to minimize the total losses outside the spec limits, or shut down the process and get out of that business. You know, when a process is not capable, that's when they start calling in y'all. They start calling in the Lean Six Sigma practitioner, the black belt, the master black belts. That's when you got to come in. You got to do some process mapping sessions with your team. You're getting out those handy dandy sticky pads. You're putting them on the whiteboard. And you're doing some work. You're going to clean up that process, my friend. That's what you're doing as a practitioner. In this case number 3, 6 sigma is greater than USL minus LSL. Process is not capable of meeting specifications regardless of the process mean location. Process capability indices. These are simplified measures that quickly describe the relationship between variability of a process and the spread of the specification limits. So they're simplified measures to quickly describe the relationship between the variability of the process and the spread of the specification limits. Like many simplified measures, such as the grades A, B, C, D, and E in school, capability indices do not completely describe what is happening with a process. They are useful when the assumptions for using them are met to compare the capabilities of the process. 3 types of indices are found to be most commonly used in Six Sigma processes. They are CP, CPK, and CPM. We will shortly look into all of these and then run through an example followed by a short exercise. So yeah, we're going to look at each of those indices. And indices basically, it's kind of like a target. It's kind of something that measures process capability and whether it's being met or not. So we look at the numbers, and each number indicates whether a process is capable, very capable, somewhat capable, or not capable at all. There's different levels depending on what number is provided next to the CP, CPK, and the CPM. Okay. There's also the capability index, CP. This is the equation for the simplest capability index, CP. This is the ratio of the specification spread to the process spread. The latter is represented by 6 standard deviations or 6 standard deviations. Z equals 3CP if the process is centered, because when the process is centered, CP equals CPK. Actually, Z equals 3CPK equals 3CP. You don't really need to know all of this, but it is in the notes in the PowerPoint that you provided. What you need to look at is the actual index itself, whether it's CP, CPM. You need to follow the guide, and if it's higher than a number, it means it's capable. If it's not, then it means it's not, and then you'll get the guide for that. So CP equals maximum allowable range of characteristics divided by the normal variation of the process. And this is the formula. No one's requiring you to do this by hand, okay? This formula, or CP, assumes that the normal distribution is the correct model for the process. I don't want you to get so caught up in trying to do these formulas by hand, because even PhD statisticians are not doing them by hand. What y'all need to understand is that you are literally going to enter your data into Minitab statistical software program. You're going to have 2 columns, your before improvement plan numbers and your after improvement plan numbers. You're going to run the test called capability analysis, and it's going to give you some nice outputs. What y'all want to see is make sure all your dots are in between. Don't get too complicated, and don't make it harder for yourself than it has to be. Here it goes, y'all. The capability index, CP. Whoa, this is not good at all. You see all the dots? Let me take out my little highlighter. Y'all see all the dots right here? Not good at all. Not good at all. So when you conduct your capability analysis, it's going to give you a CP number as part of the output. In this example right here, CP is less than 1.0. Total area, parts per million outside limits, is greater than 5%. I do not like this at all. So here it is, y'all. You have your before data numbers, you have your after numbers. Y'all, you're after your improvement plan. You do not want to see this. This means you were an epic fail as a practitioner. What y'all want to see is after you rolled out your improvement plan, which means you trained your employees in the tweaked and the improved standard operating procedures. Y'all want to be right here after the improvement plan. Sure, before the improvement plan, your capability index, the CP, yep, it could be less than CP less than 1.0. It is to be expected. That's why you as a practitioner came in and did the hard work with your employees and training them on the new processes. So while the before improvement plan can look this bad, after improvement plan, y'all should be looking like this. That means you got all your employees to do the same steps in the same order within the same time frame, and the process is high in repeatability and reproducibility. So y'all want this or no? Nope. You do not want a CP less than 1, especially after your improvement plan, because that means greater than 5% of the total area. It's outside limits. What are the necessary actions if this occurs? Well, you got to sort, you got to rework, you got a lot of scrap, you have a heavy process control, shift to new technology, or you shut down the business. So this, if I could do it, I'd put a big X on this one. But let's look at this one. It's getting a little better. When you have a CP equals 1, what does that mean? It means 0.3% of the total area. It's outside limits. So y'all, it's getting better. This was greater than 5%. Now we're down to 0.3%. What are the necessary actions if your capability analysis looks like this when you calculate the output? This means there's going to be a need for inspection and a use of control charts. This is looking better. I really love this. See how it's getting tighter? You're smack dab in the middle of the highway right now. This is much tighter, but this is looking good. So let's look at this. In this example, CP equals 1.33. Total areas outside limits, 64 per million opportunities. In this necessary situation, selected use of control charts and inspection. And now, y'all, you got a CP 1.63. In here, it's only the total area outside limits. It's only 1 per million opportunities. Necessary action is selected use of control charts, random sampling. For a CP equal to 2, there is only 0.01 parts per million opportunities if the process is centered. So how likely is that? It could be likely. So what did we learn here? The higher the CP number, the better. But honestly, this is really good. And if you do have a manual process, let me just clean this right here. It's getting a little dirty. Yep. Oh, what was on my screen? So honestly, this is good too. In the real world, this is good. This is good. Both of these are good. Let me take out my highlighter so I can show you. This is good in the real world. This is good too. This is better than this, but they're still within the highway, so you're good. So my students often say, well, Sandra, I really don't understand when they say, what is a capability index? You know, what is an indice? It's just it's just going to show up like this. It's going to show up like a CP, and you need to know how to interpret the numbers. And the ideal number you want to be on the outlook for is 1.63. But even if you're at 1.33, it's not that bad. And if you see numbers around here and here, or even 2, whoa, that means you did a good job in training your employees in ideal standard operating procedures. There's consistency. You can do the process without thinking about it consistently, and you're golden. Then we have the capability index, CP. Same one we had before, right? Yep, same one. Okay, but there's some disadvantages. CP assumes that the normal distribution is the correct model for the process. It ignores the mean or target of the process, says little about the current performance. If the process mean is lined up exactly with one of the specification limits, half the output is non-conforming regardless of the value CP had. So CP equals 1.63 is really good. That means there's only 1 per million opportunities. And CP equals 1.63, only 1 per million opportunities. But see, it assumes there's a normal distribution. So there might be even more indices that you look at that doesn't require the normal distribution. So the CP, just keep in mind, it can be highly inaccurate and lead to misleading conclusions like this one right here about the process when the process data does not follow the normal distribution, as is in this case. The process as shown here aimed at M2 is producing defects because the aim is off-center, not because of the inherent variation about the aim, that is the capability. The CP measures potential capability, assuming that the process mean or average is equal to the midpoint of the specification limits and the process is operating in statistical control. So you might have to use other indices. That's the point. So another capability index is CPK. As the average or mean is often not at the midpoint, it is useful to have a capability index that reflects both variation and the location of the process average or mean. CPK is this index. The capability index, CPK, reflects the current process mean's proximity to either the upper specification limit, USL, or the lower specification limit, LSL. Y'all, just look at this formula carefully. Enjoy it very carefully. I'll give you a second to digest it if you're even able to. Just take a moment. You're never going to do this by hand, but just take a moment. Enjoy it. You will be entering the data. You're going to choose the function capability analysis and let them do all of these numbers within a few seconds, okay? Within a fraction of a second once you enter all of the data. You will not be doing this by hand, and I don't want you to look at these formulas and think there's anybody out there, even a Lean Six Sigma Master Black Belt, that's doing this by hand. You can look at it, appreciate it, but even statisticians and PhDs, they're not doing this by hand. They're relying on the statistical software to run these formulas. Because if you do them manually, you're going to get lots of mistakes. This index accounts for the static mean shift in the process. And what I tell students is just play it safe. Look at all three of the indexes, because all three of them are tapping into whether a process is capable. And y'all know when you're looking at the graph and it's within those lines, you can visually see whether the process is capable or not. But it's nice in your report to also say, hey, in this analysis, I ran the capability analysis, and we saw that CPK equals this, CP equals this. And according to blah, blah, blah table, this means that the process is either highly capable, somewhat capable, or is an epic fail. Okay, so the capability index CPK. Consider the following situation. The process standard deviation is 0.8 with an upper specification limit equals 24, lower specification limit equals 18, and the process mean equals 22. In this case, the standard capability ratio is estimated as USL minus LSL divided by S standard deviations, and that's going to equal 24 minus 18. And then you have to divide that by 4.8, and that equals 1.25, which implies that if the process were centered between the spec limits at 22, then only a small proportion of the product would be defective. and you can look at this when you see your slide deck notes. The higher the value of CPK, lower will be the amount of product which is outside the spec limits. This is important in supplier selection process where some organizations use it as a criteria for selection. CP and CPK are used for two types of capability studies. One, study of the process potential. An estimate is obtained of what the process can do under certain conditions. That is short-term variation of a process in a state of statistical control. Here, CP estimates process capability. Then you have two, study of process performance. An estimate of the capability provides a picture of what the process is doing over an extended period of time, with process assumed to be under statistical control. Here, CPK estimates the process capability. And this is the formula. Increase in CPK values require change in the process mean, the process variation, or both. It is easier for some processes to change the process mean by simple adjustment of the process aim, than by reducing variation, which calls for root cause analysis and identification of potential X's. This value alerts us that the process mean is currently near the USL. Acceptable process, reduced standard deviation, center the mean, or both. And I say just look at all the indices, and because they're all tapping into whether a process is capable or not. So we have another capability index called CPM. The capability index, CPM, accounts for the proximity of the process mean to a designated target T. When the process is centered between the specification limits and the process mean is on target, T, CP equals CPK equals CPM. If the target value were T equals 21, that would be calculated into 1.281. This is the formula. When a process mean departs from the target value T, there is a substantive effect on the capability index. In the earlier CPK example, if the target value was T equals 21, CPM would equal 1.281. Capability index, CR. The capability index, CR, or capability ratio, is used to describe the percentage of the specification spread that is occurred or used by the process spread. This is the formula. The index makes a direct comparison between the process and the engineering requirements. Assuming normal distribution of the process and the process mean exactly centered between the engineering requirements, CR index of 100% gives a capable process. However, if we expect a drift, the maximum acceptable value is 75%. The smaller the CR is, the better. CR has the same disadvantages as CP. So there's no such thing as one index being better than the other. It really does all vary depending on what your data looks like. And it's important to look at all the indexes and to really look at the visual itself and see whether all the data points are tight and in the center. If they are, you're good to go. Sigma process capability. This process spread falls within the specification limits, but it is not on target. This process will have a poor CPM value. This process spread falls within specification limits, but not on target. But it's closer to the target than the above graph, so its CPM value is better. So in this example, 3 sigma process, there's no mean shift. In this example, 3 sigma process, mean shift of 1.5 sigma. If the process is exactly centered on target, the PPK and CPM values will be equal. CPM is calculated only when you provide the target values. Sigma process capability. 6 sigma process, no mean shift. This is looking really, really nice. This is where you want to be as a practitioner. And I love these numbers. This is, whoa. As a practitioner, if you can get all your data points here, and you're like 1 standard deviation, 2 standard deviations away from the lower specification limit, and you're 1 standard deviation, 2 standard deviations away from the upper specification limit, y'all see this person is straight dab in the middle of the highway lane. There's so much room for mistakes. It's not even going to get there. That means there's so much mistakes on this side. You saw the CPs from the last one. They were around 1. And look at the CP for this one. Remember, what did it say? 1.63 or higher? Look at this one. The CP is 2.04. The CPK is 2.04. And you know what this means practically in the real world? This means you as a practitioner, you did such a good job in cleaning up the errors and the mistakes and the long process cycle times. And you trained your employees. And you put so much work into your Lean Six Sigma project to get a result like this, where you're in the middle of the highway lane, nowhere close to this lower line and nowhere close to this upper line. And I always tell my students, I say, don't get caught up in the formulas. Don't feel discouraged and saying I can never do this manually, so I'm going to give up and I'm never going to become a Lean Six Sigma Master Black Belt. You choose the function, you choose the test capability analysis, and within a fraction of a second, you get beautiful output that looks like this. And you copy and paste it into your report. And you can show visually that these data points are nowhere close to this, and these data points are nowhere close to this. And you succeeded as a practitioner. Keep the big picture in mind when you start feeling bogged down by formulas that even statisticians don't do by hand. Six Sigma process, mean shift of 1.5 sigma. In this example, the CP is 2.01. It's still looking good, y'all. Okay? But the CPK takes into consideration the center, so you can see it's mean shift of 1.5 sigma, so it's veering to the right. It's still within, I mean, it's not that bad. It's still within the specification limit. It's still within the line, but you see how much room there is for here? But you see how it kind of gets scary? because it's veering to the right of the highway. So you want to be careful. Ideally, you want to see this, right? But there's still some room. And in the real world, this could be good enough. Let's be honest. Diagnosing capability data. At least 4 general sources of variation can occur with any process. Chronic mean shift. The mean shifts and stays shifted. Acute mean shifts. The mean of the subgroup shifts for short periods of time. Within a subgroup, variation changes over time. Chronic changes in variation. Variation within subgroups gradually gets larger or smaller over time. We can discern these patterns from investigating differences in CPs and CPKs when using the pooled and overall standard deviations. Measure phase tools. These include the process capability analysis. And y'all should know that when you're looking at the process capability at the baseline, at the pre-improvement, just where you are currently, your process may not be that capable. But when you do your post-improvement plan numbers, we should be looking at really nice, tight data, smack dab in the middle. And then there's another measure of phase tools we're going to be learning about in the next lecture, gauge R&R. We're going to be learning about descriptive statistics in the next lecture. Graphical analyses.